What's up, everybody? Coach Daisha here, bringing you another hot topic this week. As you know, I normally create these videos in response to the questions that I get on a weekly basis from the current patients and clients that I work with. And so, one of the things that I hear so many questions about have to do with what I call the extra modalities or exercise equipment out there. So, my prior video was all about essential equipment. This particular video is going to dive into three different pieces of equipment that I hear a lot about, get a lot of questions about, and that includes OsteoStrong, vibration plates, and X3 bars. So, what I would like to do is for each one of these, I kind of want to break it down into three different sections. So, for each one, I want to talk about some of the technical parts of each one, give you some research evidence for each one, and then the practical considerations, whether this is something that you want to consider or not. Now, this is a lot of information, and I want to make sure that I do it in, once again, a succinct way. So I've got some notes over here on the side, so you'll see me looking at those notes. So I want to make sure I don't miss anything, but keep this video nice and short. So with that said, let's get into it. First up is OsteoStrong. So I'm going to go to my notes to make sure I don't miss anything on this one. With OsteoStrong, we are dealing with specialized resistance machines that use isometric loading. So when we talk about isometric loading, that means the joint doesn't move. Normally, when we are strength training, let's say we're doing bicep curls, that's my go-to example. So with bicep curls, you're holding dumbbells in each hand and you're curling the dumbbells up to your shoulders, right? So that action is happening at the elbow joint, right? We call that isotonic. So whenever most of the movements that we do in strength training are isotonic because we are moving and the joint is moving in order to shorten the muscle and therefore increase strength in the muscle. However, there are certain moves where you don't move at all. And one of your favorites is probably a plank, right? So if you get down on the ground and you hold plank for however long you can, that's actually considered an isometric move because no joints are moving during that particular exercise. Well, that's the same thing that's happening here with these particular machines used in OsteoStrong facilities. These machines aren't, you're not moving, but the machine is producing very, very rapid movements that are then causing the load to the bone. This is all under the theory of osteogenic loading, right? So any type of impact that's happening over and over again to the bone would then increase osteoblast activity. So that's kind of the whole theory behind OsteoStrong. One of the issues here with OsteoStrong is that it is a franchise facility. So you have to have one near you in order to even participate in this particular modality. And there aren't a lot throughout the United States. If you do live in a large city, there may be one near you. I know I personally live about 2 hours away from the closest facility. So this is something to consider if you are looking into the OsteoStrong. Now, when we get into the research evidence with OsteoStrong, there are a couple of things to consider here. The first thing is there currently are not a lot of independent research studies done on OsteoStrong. So that means a company or an organization outside of the OsteoStrong company doing research on these particular machines. That means a lot of the studies and a lot of the positive results that you hear about OsteoStrong are actually within the company itself. So always keep that in mind. Whenever you are looking at research studies, always see who conducted the study, and then you can take the results with a grain of salt if you want to. It's one of those where you really do have to pay attention to who conducted the research, who funded the research, etc. So currently, a lot of the positive results and research that we have on this particular company are within the company itself. With that said, the studies that have been done have shown some positive results when it comes to this high compressive loading. All right, so what are the practical considerations when it comes to OsteoStrong? Well, as I mentioned before, first off, the locations. You have to have a location near you in order to even participate in this particular modality. Second, it is a membership. The membership costs anywhere between 150 and 300 bucks a month. The next consideration is that this is a very short duration activity, meaning if you do go to OsteoStrong, you're going to sit in that facility, you're going to use the machines, and it's probably going to be less than 15 minutes total that you were there in the facility. And they only recommend that you do it once per week. So you really do have to weigh that time cost benefit there. Lastly, this could be a great alternative for those people with very limited mobility or for people who cannot do traditional impact movements. Next up are vibration plates. So first things first, vibration plates, it's inherent in the title, right? They're vibrating. So they're moving at a very, very rapid movement. Most vibration plates are going to move in one of two ways. They're either going to move vertically, which means up and down, or they're going to oscillate, where there's kind of a side to side, almost like a seesaw type movement there. With that said, all the different vibration plates out there also come in different frequencies and amplitudes, and I'll get to more of that here in a second. The last thing to consider when it comes to this tech overview of vibration plates is the price range. It can go anywhere from $100 for a pretty basic one, all the way up to about $3,000 if you get a more advanced product from a larger company. So keep all those things in mind. Now, let's dive into the research when it comes to vibration plates. To be honest, the research here is very mixed. There are some positive results, but then there have been some research studies that really haven't shown an increase in bone mineral density by using these particular pieces of equipment. Now, some of the more positive results out there, however, are geared towards postmenopausal women who already have low bone mineral density. So that is something to keep in mind. With these results, they have shown greater results if it is combined with other exercises. So although some of these vibration plates are going to say that you can just stand on them and get great results, most of the more positive research results come when these vibration plates were combined with other types of exercise. Other things to keep in mind have to do with the frequency and the amplitude that I mentioned earlier. A lot of the research out there is going to give you different results based on the different frequencies and amplitudes. So when we talk about frequency, most of the results, the more positive results, fall in frequencies between 20 hertz and 45 hertz. Now, when we go to amplitude, amplitude has found some really positive results anywhere between 1 millimeter up to 4 millimeters of amplitude. However, they have found some negative side effects once you start to increase the amplitude. Once you get into 3 to 4 millimeters of amplitude, there have been some studies where participants sustained injuries or fractures at that particular amplitude. So that is something to keep in mind if you are somebody prone to fractures already. Lastly, when it comes to the research, it truly matters what the vibration plate is, like how the quality of the vibration plate. So your higher quality vibration plates are normally the ones that yielded the better results, as opposed to the lower cost ones that you could easily get on Amazon or something like that. So quality does matter. So what are the practical considerations when it comes to vibration plate? Well, the first thing you have to keep in mind is that you could do this from home, right? This is something small that won't take up a lot of space in your home. So if you're somebody who only works out from home, this could be a nice adjunct to the other equipment that you have at home. With that said, you do have to consider where you are on that osteoporosis spectrum. These vibration plates are normally contraindicated for people with severe osteoporosis, so people who have very high T-scores. So keep that in mind. Proper form and technique when using these vibration plates is also very important. They do recommend when you are standing on them that you also stand on them with a slight knee bend, meaning your knee is bent somewhere between 10 to 20 degrees of flexion. Lastly, a vibration plate is not a replacement for traditional resistance training. All of the studies out there have shown that the best results come when the vibration plate is combined with strength training. So once again, this is going to be a supplement to what you're doing, not something that takes over your entire program. Last but not least on our list today is the X3 bar. So the X3 bar is a variable resistance band system that uses a stable platform. Now, this company claims that by using this particular piece of equipment, you will be getting better stimulation of the muscles and the bones than if you were just using free weights, such as dumbbells or kettlebells. The X3 bar is built around the same concept that most resistance bands are, meaning that you're going to get the most resistance when you're at the strongest point of a lift. So it is variable resistance, just like a normal resistance band would be, meaning you're going to get the least resistance at the lower part of the move and you're going to get the most resistance when you're at the top of the move. Now, when we get into the research behind the X3 bar, it's very interesting. Much like OsteoStrong, there's not a lot of independent research done on this modality, which means that any of the research that you see done on this piece of equipment was probably done by the company itself. Now, with that said, a lot of times they just use the research that's already been done on resistance bands. So not in particular their product, but just resistance bands in general. And resistance bands have been tested and researched for years and decades at this point. And yes, resistance bands have been proven to improve muscular strength. But we're always looking for research that's very specific to the product itself. And in this case, we don't have a lot that's specific to the X3 bar. They simply use the concept of, well, if resistance bands are very helpful for you, then so is our product. So what are the practical considerations when it comes to the X3 bar? Well, the first is that this could be a home-based solution. So once again, if you're somebody who wants to do your workouts from home, you can definitely use this piece of equipment. But keep this in mind. The entire system can cost over $500. So keep the cost of that in mind when you're looking to see if you want to add this to your arsenal of equipment. Also, form and technique, so important on this one. Because this is a variable resistance system, it is just as important to have proper form and technique in the lowering phase of the lift as it is in the lifting phase, or when we're actually in the example of a bicep curl, curling up to our shoulders, okay? So you want to make sure that in this case, you know that you've got the proper form and technique to be able to safely return that bar back to the starting position. If you are new to lifting, this may not be the piece of equipment for you. However, if you are looking to increase what you're doing, to progress in your movements, then this is something to consider. So let's do a quick cost-benefit analysis when it comes to these pieces of equipment. We'll go from least to greatest when we're talking about the cost here. Obviously, the most affordable are going to be your standard dumbbells, kettlebells, resistance bands, etc. Up from there, we've got your vibration plates. But remember, you've got to keep in mind that vibration plates are really only beneficial if we're starting to buy the more expensive ones. So when we're doing this cost analysis, the cheaper ones may fall next in line, but those may not be the ones that you're looking for. Next up from there is going to be the actual X3 bar. Once again, remember, it's going to be about $500, but that's a one-time cost. And then up from there, at the very top of our list, the most expensive would be the OsteoStrong, where you're paying, once again, anywhere from $150 to $300 per month for that membership. Now, let's rank these pieces of equipment from least to greatest on improving muscular strength. At the very bottom of this list is actually OsteoStrong. Remember, we don't have a lot of independent research on that one. Right above that is going to be our X3 bar. And don't forget, we're using a lot of the research there where it's just on resistance bands, but maybe not the X3 bar itself. Next up from there is going to be your vibration plates. And then at the very top, our traditional strength training equipment, our dumbbells, our kettlebells, our machines, etc. So there's your ranking from least to greatest on what truly improves muscular strength. So some final takeaways here on these three pieces of equipment. First things first, nothing replaces traditional strength training. So if you're somebody at home right now who's just got some dumbbells, kettlebells, resistance bands sitting around, then you are good to go. All of these things we went over today, OsteoStrong, vibration plates, and the X3 bar, could be supplemental, but you have to keep your current fitness level in mind. If you are somebody with prior history of fractures, then some of these things are not going to be applicable to you. Also, if you are a beginner, if you are new to strength training, then maybe starting off with an X3 bar is not going to be in your wheelhouse right now. And that's perfectly okay. You really do have to stop and consider your own personal goals and your own personal medical history before adding any of these. Once again, these would be supplemental to strength training. They would not take the place of traditional strength training. The other thing to keep in mind is time and cost. A lot of these things might take a lot of time to do, such as OsteoStrong. If you had to travel to an OsteoStrong facility and you were only there for 10 to 15 minutes, is that worth your time? And then, of course, the cost. Some of these things, especially some of your higher end vibration plates, are going to cost you $2,000 to $3,000. Are you going to be consistent in using that piece of equipment in order to justify the cost of it? So my final opinion on these, they could be supplemental. Some of these things, especially the vibration plates, could be beneficial to those people who cannot do traditional impact training. So there you have it. You could have this as a supplement to you if it's necessary, but nothing, absolutely nothing is going to replace traditional strength training. So I hope that this video was helpful. I hope that you now have a better understanding of the research behind some of these, what they tout, what the practical considerations are, and now you can make an informed decision on if any of these modalities are appropriate for you. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you for another hot topic.